My start of this talk with three well-known quotes is not coincidental, not just to correspond to a charm beginning. Rather, they link very much to the tone and theme of what I have to say in this short deliberation. They are metaphorical answers, insight to three key concerns of today's deliberation: extremism, sectarianism, and insurgency. These concerns are essentially relevant today, but then they do not necessarily share all-encompassing common grounds, and not certainly we have a single answer to all these issues. The chairman, respected panels, excellencies, distinguished guests, and gentlemen, assalamu alaikum and good morning to you all. We are now in a world which has perhaps escaped the risk of living in the threshold of subsistence. Might is not anymore an entirely unaccounted for right, and the people can demand answerability from their leaders. The world seemed to be in peace and in justice in absence of an apparent major conflict. Openly, what haunts the world more is low-intensity conflict, regional or local strife, sectarian or orthodox obstinacy. But surprisingly enough, together they make and demonstrate a big violent world. Here, you see the conflict zone of the world. This picture represents a turbulent world that endures armed conflict in more than half of the ranges. Beyond doubt, we do not normally see the dark side of the menace until it appears by the neighborhood. We are all aware of the fact that in most cases, these conflicts bear unique natures corresponding to respective politico-historic realities. It would be seldom possible to catalog them distinctively, though some of these are always interrelated and identical. However, they all derive strength from elements like egoism, intolerance, and marginalization. Gentlemen, I have narrowed my scope within South Asia region, reasonably because the complexity of the issue is merely enough for a cursory glance of 20 minutes, while on the other hand, I need the matter to befit my knowledge and experience. The dictionary connotation of extremism, sectarianism, and insurgency from an idealist viewpoint may offer something different than what is prevailing in the real context of the world. Academically, extremism is a dogma considered to be far outside the mainstream attitude of a society or to violate common moral standards. Sectarianism, on the other hand, refers to bigotry, discrimination, or hatred arising from attaching importance to perceived differences between subdivisions within a group, such as between different denominations of a religion, class, regional, or factions of a political movement. Insurgency is an armed rebellion against a constituted authority when those taking part in the rebellion are not recognized as belligerent. These definitions may be contested from varied standpoints, and there are hardly any unanimously agreed upon terms. Apart from sectarianism, which is distinct due to ethno-religious speciality, both extremism and insurgency have been defined by respective interest and viewpoint. Someone's extremism is someone's ultimate fighting option for subsistence. Someone's insurgents are someone's freedom fighter. And we may rightly quote Nelson Mandela here, who said, I quote, "I was called a terrorist yesterday, but when I came out of jail, many people embraced me, including my enemies. And that is what I normally tell other people who say those who are struggling for liberation in their country are terrorists. I tell them that I was also a terrorist yesterday, but today I am admired by the very people who said I was one," unquote. Once hailed and supported as eminent freedom fighter against the Soviet invasion, Gulbuddin Hekmatyar later became listed terrorist to the West. Again, extremism is not equally denounced when undertaken by state actors. The Nazi Holocaust was a state-sponsored extremism. So was the bombing at the Hiroshima and Nagasaki. Similar is what Israeli security forces do as necessary response for security and stability. Perhaps it is not only cultural relativism or moral relativism that to be blamed for this definition dilemma. Rather, more often a dogmatic belief together with narrow understanding of perceived national interest forces an unwavering standpoint. South Asia at the moment does not appear as a conflict hotspot from the conventional viewpoint. If we look ahead to predict a probable security scenario in South Asia, a large-scale interstate armed conflict sounds only a possibility, if not essentially prefixed by remote. Despite an apparent arms race vis-a-vis perpetual increase in defense budget, South Asia nations mostly train and prepare their armed forces more for deterring the adversary. The region typically experiences intrastate conflicts deriving from internal security dynamics. These have their roots in the communal, religious, ethno-political, and socio-economic diversities of the region. But this classification risks oversimplification, since intrastate conflict in the region often possesses overlapping causes. The South Asian nations share geographical contiguity and historical, cultural, religious ties. Therefore, they are at risk of cascading or spillover effect of any sensitive changes in the region. The cultural and emotional study of the people here would definitely present a metaphor, which is a sentimental, staunch believer of religious values and also tolerant. Interestingly, when education and civilizations were remote, scarce, and inaccessible during the pre-colonial era, people embraced and intermingled at ease with different beliefs and ethnicity. It is mostly the colonial evil design of divide and rule that generated ethno-religious mistrust and enmity. The subcontinent enjoyed religious harmony for over 1,000 years and learned tolerance and adaptation. The colonial masters shattered that harmony. Now it experiences the rise of extremism that includes armed class struggle, armed secular nationalism, religious militancy, ranging from street riots to organized terrorism and state repression against dissident voices. Poor governance and insecurity due to state weakness, state complicity in violence and crime provide sanctuaries from which extreme groups can operate. from Nepal's Terai Valley to India's Red Corridor, Pakistan's chaotic city and frontier towns to poppy-rich lands of Afghanistan. Already clogged by issues like population explosion, underdevelopment and illiteracy, South Asian region provides ideal condition for breeding extremism and intolerance. The region has almost 1/3 of the world population, thrives for development in the face of menace, such as ethnic conflicts, violation of human rights, terrorism, religious turmoil, and host of other serious factors. In preference to addressing these pertinent issues, South Asian countries focuses more on interstate mistrust and conflict hypothesis. We are aware that the subcontinent's strategic credence and nuclear overhang makes it vital for the world powers to exercise their respective influence in the sub-region. As such, its geopolitical environment involves both inter- and intra-state security challenges and the interest of various stakeholders. However, not mere the existence of extremism, but its constant ability to find a wide audience, especially in both Afghanistan and Pakistan, is a matter of serious concern. As identified by study, the three problems that have contributed both to the rise in popularity of Islamist movement and overall instability in the region are: first, general breakdown of law and order, a breakdown in inter-ethnic trust and dialogue, third, lack of proper education and religious issues. The same phenomena may appear easily elsewhere in the region and welcome extremist sympathizers. The spillover effect of Afghan-based extremism are well felt in these days. We may humbly differ with the recent Indian official standpoint which says IS is still not a threat. What is important is to identify the psychological aspect of the threat than of its physical presence. We may note that in recent published Global Terrorism Index (GTI), the subcontinental countries ranked substantially higher from the terrorism infection potentials. For example, Afghanistan is only second to war-ridden Iraq, while Pakistan, India, Bangladesh occupy 3rd, 6th, and 23rd positions respectively. We may not also undermine the recent threat vowed by Al-Qaeda leadership Ayman al-Zawahiri. The extremist groups in South Asia can be placed in three categories: arising out of religious fundamentalism, left-wing extremism, and extremism resulting from desire for secessionism. In Pakistan, opposing Muslim sectarian groups are engaged in violent power struggle. In India and in Sri Lanka, the rise of extreme nationalism is a challenge to secular